Hey there Halloweenies, it's Blackmetalwerewolf making a brand new video for you. And today we are going to be talking about 3 different movies. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now usually when the subject of the Halloween movies come up in discussion, most people usually only talk about number 1 and 2, and sometimes 3 if they're really into that movie. Whenever 4, 5, and 6 come up, it's usually people just dumping on how bad they are. But this month I rewatched all the Halloween movies, and I kind of thought, do these 3 movies really deserve all the hate they get? So that's what we are going to be talking about today. Let's start out with an overview for the plot of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This movie takes place 10 years after the explosive conclusion of Halloween 2. Michael is in a catatonic state and is being transferred from Smith's Grove to another institution. Why it's taken them 10 years to do this? Who the hell knows? But of course, Michael regains consciousness, escapes, and returns back to Haddonfield to hunt down and murder his remaining relative, Jamie Lloyd. Of course, Dr. Loomis survives his events from Halloween 2 and returns in this movie to give his Michael is pure evil speech and to try to convince the authorities that Michael has come home once again. The movie comes to a pretty explosive conclusion with Michael chasing down Jamie and her babysitter Rachel. The police intervene and end up blasting Michael away in a hail of gunfire until his bullet-ridden body falls down a mineshaft. Overall, the story isn't anything special, but it's not terrible. Halloween 2 already established that Michael is trying to hunt down and murder his remaining relatives, so in this movie they essentially just replaced Laurie Strode with Jamie Lloyd. It's a slasher flick, you essentially get what you pay for. Now that I've gone over the basic plot of the movie, let's talk about the good and the bad aspects of it. Let's start with the bad. There is no way I can talk about this movie without pointing out just how terrible Michael looks. His mask is so bland and boring, it has zero scare factor to it. And what I find really confusing is that the mask they show on the cover of the Blu-ray is not the mask they use in the movie. This is. They're 2 completely different things, and the one on the back that they actually use in the movie looks so much worse than the one on the cover of the Blu-ray. That is incredibly misleading to anyone who's going to pick that up. That might sound like a nitpick, but to me it's a pretty big problem. Another thing I thought was really weird was how bulked up they made Michael. I never really realized how buff you can get while laying in a coma for 10 years. And what I also found confusing is that he doesn't really get bulked up until he puts on the boiler suit. Did the mechanic he steal that from line it with football equipment? I really don't understand that choice, and it just looks awkward and weird. Aside from the way Michael looks, my other biggest gripe with this movie is how tame the kills are. The kills in this movie are few and far between, and the majority of them happen off camera. That's very surprising, seeing as how the back of the Blu-ray reads, "Remains infamous for its startling twist ending and graphic violence." For someone who has never heard of the Halloween series or have seen any of the movies before, that is incredibly misleading. Even for its time, this movie has incredibly tame kills for a slasher movie. Now let's talk about what I really liked about this movie. I always found the cinematography to be very slick for the type of movie that it is. I thought they were able to capture the atmosphere of fall and Halloween quite well, especially during the opening credit scenes. I could sit down and watch that over and over again. I always also really liked the way they were able to capture the fear of the townspeople when they realized that Michael was back. The group of rednecks still remember what happened 10 years prior, and they sure as hell don't want that happening again in their town. Especially when they form a posse to try and hunt him down. I really thought that was a good idea and really enjoyed it. Of course, I can't talk about this movie without mentioning Dr. Loomis. The whole movie, he has this tired look to him, but he also has this nervous sense of urgency that it's kind of hard to put into words, but when you see it, you know. Donald Pleasance does an excellent job in this. I also really like the drunk pastor. At the very beginning when he picks Loomis up and gives him a drive, that gives me a laugh every fucking time I see it. He's so funny, he's so over the top. Just seeing this piss drunk pastor hand some liquor off to Loomis and continue to drive, I love it, I think it's awesome. The final positive thing I have to say about this movie is that one of the kills really stands out. I know before I said that the kills were really tame, but this one is just so over the top and stupid, it really steals the show. And that is when Michael takes a gun and literally stabs someone through a wall with it. It is so stupid and so over the top, but I can't help but enjoy it. It's just one of those scenes that you gotta get a smile out every single time you watch it. Overall, if I had to give this movie a rating from 1 to 10, I would probably give it a 7. It's not a terrible movie, but there are some things in it that it could improve to make it a lot better. Now, let's talk about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. The plot of this movie picks up exactly where Halloween 4 leaves off. Michael gets blasted by the cops and his body falls down the mine shaft. However, he's still alive and he crawls his way to safety. A hermit that lives in the woods ends up finding Michael and takes care of his unconscious body for the next year, until he wakes up and kills the poor bastard. I guess that'll show him for helping those in need. Now, Jamie Lloyd is in a children's hospital and realizes she has a telepathic link to her murderous uncle. Why does she have a telepathic link? I have no idea. How did she get a telepathic link bonded to her uncle? I have no idea. I suppose it's one of those things that the audience is supposed to guess or just not know at all. Aside from the telepathy thing and a few characters getting killed off and being replaced with even more annoying characters, the movie does very little different from Halloween 4. It's just Michael trying to kill Jamie on Halloween night. I do have to mention that this is the first movie to introduce the Man in Black and the Thorn symbol, which is the symbol that this trilogy has been nicknamed after. If you're just watching this movie for the first time, chances are you won't notice all the cool thorn symbols that have been cleverly hidden in the background, but once you know they're there, you're going to be seeing them all over the damn place. Anyway, back to the movie. Finally, the movie concludes with Michael getting locked up by the cops, but the mysterious Man in Black bombs the jail cell to break Michael out. Jamie comes to see what all the commotion is about, and then the movie abruptly ends. You don't really know who the Man in Black is or why he's there, but you can pretty much conclude that it's just a device to set up for another sequel. Alright, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what I disliked about this movie. Get comfortable because I have a lot to say. In all honesty, this is probably my least favorite of the Thorn Trilogy. Let's start with the characters. I hate pretty much every single one of them. All the teenagers in this movie are ditzy, loud, and incredibly annoying. I get that these characters are supposed to be disposable, but do they have to be this insufferable? Like, for the love of God. Now let's get down to the pair of goofball cops. They are probably the second worst part of this movie. How the hell did these two shitheads become cops? Like, if I saw them in a slapstick comedy or a parody horror movie, I don't think I'd mind them nearly as much, but this is supposed to be an R-rated slasher flick. What purpose do they serve in this movie other than being annoying? The worst part about them is that whenever they goof up, they actually interjected sound effects that sound like they're from a child's cartoon show. I cringe every fucking time I see it. Next up, we have the incredibly lame kills. I just watched this movie 2 nights ago, and there's only one kill in this movie I can actually remember, and that's when Michael hangs the cop outside the Myers house. At least that's something. For me, the biggest sin this movie commits are the fake-outs. You think it's going to be Michael going in for a kill, but then nope, it's just one of those annoying teenagers playing a prank on one of their friends. I don't mind fake-outs in horror movies, because usually they can actually be used quite effectively to build tension and to keep you on your toes in a tense situation. But this movie does it several times in a row with the exact same characters. Why, oh why did they do this? Once is fine, but when you do it 3 or 4 fucking times in a row, give me a break. Finally, my last biggest gripe with this movie is Michael's mask again. It looks considerably better than it did in Halloween 4, but it still looks like crap. It's still incredibly plain, even though they tried to dirty it up and make it look a bit more grimy, but it just doesn't have any scare factor to it. Also, to me, it kind of looks like it's a little too big for the actor's head. It just doesn't seem to fit it quite right. There's something off about it. I can't really quite put my finger on what it is, but it doesn't look quite right. But at least with this movie, they kind of slimmed Michael down a bit so he looks like a regular human being who doesn't have breast and shoulder implants. Now, I don't have much positive to say about this movie, but there are a few things I'd like to bring up. First of all, I think Danielle Harris did an amazing job playing Jamie. It looks like she went through hell filming this movie, and I think she's a champ for going through all of that and then still come out kicking at the end. I applaud her for that. I also really liked how desperate Dr. Loomis was getting in this movie. At one point, he actually uses Jamie as bait to try to lure Michael in. If that doesn't stink of desperation, taking a child to lure out a murderer to try to finish him off, if that's not desperate, I don't know what is. Unfortunately, I do have to give this movie a negative review. The good just does not outweigh the bad. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a 3. It's not unwatchable, but the only reason I would give someone the reason to watch it is if they're watching the Thorn Trilogy and they want to know what happens in the middle. Alright, we're finally down to the finale of the Thorn Trilogy. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. So this movie takes place 9 years after the events of Halloween 5. After the jailbreak, both Michael and Jamie have completely disappeared and no one knows where they went. This movie starts with a 15-year-old and now pregnant Jamie giving birth to a newborn baby boy in what appears to be the basement of a hospital. After she gives birth to the boy, the baby is taken and used in some sort of ritual for the now realized Thorn cult. It turns out that the Man in Black is the leader of this cult that worships this ancient thorn symbol that when an entire family is completely eliminated, it brings upon death, destruction, mayhem, and all sorts of these atrocities. So I guess that's why they use Michael, because he started wiping out his family, so they use him to completely wipe out the family of the Myers. Anyway, Jamie escapes with her newborn baby boy, but is quickly hunted down and brutally murdered by Michael. I really don't understand why they didn't just get Michael to kill Jamie and the newborn baby as soon as it was born. I mean, if they want to eliminate the Myers family tree, like, they could have done it right then. Why the hell did they have to do some sort of weird ritual? Because they didn't do that to Laurie, they didn't do that to Jamie, but they have to do this to this newborn baby? I really don't quite understand. And I'm kind of under the impression that this cult had Jamie in prison for the past 9 years. So why did they wait for her to get pregnant when they could have just eliminated her then? It doesn't really give a specific number as to how many people have to be murdered in a family tree. It's right there, just fucking finish it. Anyway, I digress, back to the plot of the movie. So Jamie's clever enough to hide the baby before Michael murders her, and the baby is eventually found by Tommy Doyle, the little boy that Laurie was babysitting in the very first Halloween movie. Tommy eventually teams up with Loomis and the incredibly hot Kara Strode to protect the baby from Michael and the Thorn cult. Of all the movies in the Thorn Trilogy, personally, I think this one has the best plot. It takes some twists, some turns, some friends become enemies, some enemies kind of become allies. Overall, it's pretty enjoyable to watch. I don't have a lot of negatives to say about this movie, but there are a few things that should be brought up. First off, some of the acting is pretty flat. Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle is awkward and weird, and I don't think that was intentional. I think it was just bad directing and bad acting on their part. And Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis is tired and boring. It just seems that he's really over that character and he doesn't really want to do it anymore. He just did it for a paycheck. I want to say something bad about Marianne Hagen as Kara Strode, but she's just way too fucking hot for me to say anything bad about. Something else I thought was awkward was how they tried to cram all of the cult Thorn mythology into this one movie, when in reality, they should have started laying the groundwork in Halloween 4, built upon it in Halloween 5, and then do a big reveal in Halloween 6. When it really went, I didn't notice anything in Halloween 4 about this cult or about the Thorn. Halloween 5 had some like Easter eggs in it with the Man in Black and the Thorn symbols in the back, and then they did the big reveal and crammed it all into Halloween 6. I don't really see the point of putting anything in Halloween 5 if you're not going to explain it. It was just a bunch of random symbols and people that no one knows about or anything because they don't actually explain any of it. So what the hell is the point of putting it in there? Now, my biggest gripe with this movie probably has to be how they kill off Michael Myers. In Halloween 2, they blow him up and he survives. In Halloween 4, he gets shot like 50 times and survives. And in this movie, they have Tommy Doyle beat him up with a pipe. Granted, at the very end, they show that he did indeed survive, but how do you go from being blown up and getting shot 50 times to getting beat up with a pipe? Come on, man, that's super lame. Also, what the hell was with that green blood? Alright, now it's time for the good stuff. Of all these movies in the Thorn Trilogy, I think this movie has the best kills. Heads explode, heads get smashed, people get butchered with an axe. I absolutely love it at the very beginning when Michael kills Jamie. That was badass. And then at the very end when he goes on that rampage and slaughters all those doctors, that was fucking intense. Also, I have to say, they really did a good job on Michael's mask in this movie. It has features, it has character to it, it looks scary. Overall, Michael looks like an intimidating badass. I also thought this movie had a good amount of gore. Enough gore to make horror fans happy, but not so much that's over the top like the Saw movies or Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. I thought this movie was quite tasteful. There's also something else in this movie that I really enjoy, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Finally, my last favorite thing about this movie is the jack-o'-lantern at the very end. I absolutely love the design on it. Sure, it's a little thing to focus on, but it just looks so cool. So of all the Halloween movies in the Thorn Trilogy, I have to say that I think Halloween 6 is the best one. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but after rewatching these movies as an adult, it really is the best one. I don't really see how anyone could think 4 or 5 is better than it. If I had to give it a score, I would give it 8 out of 10. A lot better than 4 and 5, not nearly as good as 1, 2, or 3 though. Still very enjoyable to watch. Now let's have one little weird thing I'd like to bring up about these Blu-rays. I thought it was weird that they have Halloween 4 on a separate Blu-ray, Halloween 5 on a separate Blu-ray, and then they have Halloween 6, Halloween 20 Years Later, or H2O, and Halloween Resurrection in one triple pack. I thought it was weird. Wouldn't it make more sense to have Halloween 4, 5, and 6 together in one triple pack? Because that's one timeline. whereas Halloween 6 ends the Thorn Trilogy timeline, and H2O starts a whole new timeline of Halloween movies. I just thought it was weird why they would separate them like that. So that's my overview of the Halloween Thorn Trilogy. For the most part, I think they're relatively good movies, except for Halloween 5. That one's the worst. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think they're all garbage, or do you think they're all good? Do you think some are better than the others? Leave me a comment letting me know. I'd love to get your guys' opinion on all of this. So that's it for today's video. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, but leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of today's video. Check out some of my past videos and share it with a few of your friends while you're at it. If you want to keep up with me on a more daily basis, you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. I also have a P.O. box open. All the info is down in the description. I also have a handful of patches left for sale, so if you'd like to get your very own, you can click right over here. There's also a link down in the description. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and don't forget to stay spooky.